One of the single most commonly asked questions in interviews is, what is your greatest strength and what is your greatest weakness? I find that the answers to that question fall into two categories. People have memorized a certain kind of an answer to that, like I work too hard or something like this for the weakness. But I have also observed the opposite, namely that people are just completely stumped by that question and utterly surprised, like they've never heard this question before or they didn't expect that question to come up. And that's been quite interesting. So basically, if you have a boilerplate answer, a memorized answer that you want to give, this is fine, no harm done. But maybe you want to be a bit more creative in your answer. And of course, this is an opportunity to stick out from the crowd. In the past, I've had some of the most amazing, open, self-critical, self-reflective, just completely disarmingly honest answers to this question of what is your greatest weakness especially. And you know, this is a bit risky. I think it's important to think about this question ahead of time before you go to an interview, because you don't want to completely expose yourself, but it can also be leaving a really good impression, basically, if you have this ability to be very self-reflective. And some of these answers were so impressive that in the end, I think they played a not so minor role in the decision to hire that person. Some of these decisions have definitely been some of the best I've ever made. I think it's just interesting to think about what is your greatest weakness and strength, just in general terms, so maybe you're not totally stumped in an interview when that question comes up, and you can really stick out with your answer rather than giving the boilerplate answer, well, my greatest strength is that I work really hard and my greatest weakness is I don't know when to stop working, things like that. So, but you know, this requires some thinking and preparation though, I think, and very few people will be able to do that on the spot during the interview. Well, first of all, here are some suggestions for what to think about in terms of talking about your greatest weakness. Well, the first one is maybe you are realizing that you need another method or another analytical skill or a technique, a lab method or a statistical technique that you don't know yet. This answer can work in your favor because it shows that you are critically thinking about what your portfolio of methods that you already have is and how it really could be substantially enhanced, right? So it shows that you are critically evaluating your abilities and your skills, and it shows that you're willing to grow and to become better and a more valuable addition to the team, basically. Now, of course, make absolutely sure that when a position is, for example, advertised for somebody to bring statistical skills to the lab, that you don't say, well, I wish I knew how to open R and do anything in R, right? That's not going to help you, so it can't be for the main purpose of that particular position that you're applying for. So you got to be careful about that, but it can be something more general about your skill set. And I think that would be very valuable, and I think interviewers would really appreciate it. I would. It can also be about a professional achievement, being invited to an important conference or having a paper in a certain journal, or like whatever your achievement is that you think is important for you. And thereby you can basically let people know that interviewed you that you are ambitious and that you have thought about that. And it's not just some vain hope, but you are working towards that particular goal. And then it can also work in your favor. It can also be something a bit more about your personality, but that's tricky, right? So, I mean, it could be something, if it's true, obviously, if you are shy, you could say, well, I think I'm shy, so it takes me a bit to warm up to people. But when I am integrated in a team, I'm a really valuable team member, and I contribute to the success of the team. So then it is also, basically, it shows that you have critically self-reflected on who you are and how you would fit into a team. Now, some suggestions about strengths. Usually these are much less risky, right, than the weaknesses, because you don't want the weaknesses to be unnecessarily revealing of some real drawbacks on your CV. You want those weaknesses to be sort of, you want to transport some strengths within the weaknesses, obviously. So it's much easier to answer a question about the strengths. Now, when you talk about strengths, I think it's important that your strength is aligned with the position. So if the position is to, let's stick with the example of statistics, to do statistics and data analysis, then your strength shouldn't be, well, I'm a great experimentalist and I can do fantastic greenhouse experiments or set up field experiments, right? I mean, this is, then the strength can be counterproductive because it's not what that position is about. So make sure that when you talk about your strengths, they're aligned with the goals of the position. Well, the second general remark about the strengths is I think you should be prepared to back it up. Like, for example, if you say, I'm really good with statistics and R, you could say, well, I've used these packages and you can see this in my publications and that journal where I did such and such or developed the code for this and that. So it's very good if you don't just say, well, I'm really strong with statistics because you know this is going to be useful for this position, but then you need to have the data basically to back it up. Otherwise, just an empty claim is not going to help you at all. Another example is like if you say you're a good team player, well, everybody will say they're a good team player, right? Because nobody will say, well, I'm terrible in teams, I just work on my own. But if you say you're a good team player, then it's really nice and useful and helpful if you can back that up with some claim. Like, for example, in my previous team, I've organized workshops or co-working sessions, or I've done this and that for the team to make the team work better. That will be impressive. And then it's not just an empty claim like, I'm a good team player. Well, I think those are my general suggestions for how to answer the ever-present question, what is your greatest strength and your greatest weakness? And I hope that in your next interview, you're prepared for that question and give an awesome answer. And with that, thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video. Don't forget to leave in the comments what your answer would be.